Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today I want to talk about Dungeons & Dragons, and I want to talk about John Wick 4 as a path to fully understanding Dungeons & Dragons and our relationship to Dungeons & Dragons. Alright, so there are spoilers in this content for John Wick 4. Alright, so John Wick 4 is a beautiful film. It's an incredible piece of art, and if you are 18 or over, because I'm pretty sure this is rated R. Yeah, I'm thinking John Wick 4 is rated R. That's interesting. I don't know. But if you're over 18, you should definitely see this film. It's fantastic. Okay, but it's a beautiful film with some very deep messages, and I think it's useful to understand Dungeons & Dragons because it is high art. Right? High artists have a better, more full view of life. And I think the message being put forward, one of the messages being put forward in John Wick 4 is fundamental to forge your relationship with Dungeons & Dragons. Let's talk about it. Okay. So first of all, if you're new to Dungeons & Dragons, this video isn't for you. Go check out some other fantastic content here on YouTube. There's lots of amazing channels on here. If you have less than 100 sessions of Dungeons & Dragons under your belt, I'm not talking to you, right? But if you have ever played Dungeons & Dragons and you've had any kind of a transformative experience at the table, this is for you. Let's get into this, okay? All right, so let's talk about this film. All right, so John Wick comes out of New York, and he is being sought by every contract killer in the world who is interested in $10 million. That's the bounty on his head at the time. So he needs safe harbor, right? He needs to go somewhere where he can be safe, because anywhere where he is, he's going to be sought and he's going to be killed, right? So he decides to go to a friend, all right? Now, actually, he is friends with Winston he's friends with the Bowery King. The Bowery King has already given him aid. He's friends with Winston, who is the hotel lead at New York Continental, right? Which is a consecrated hotel under the protection of the table, okay? John Wick needs to go somewhere new, right? And right now, Winston, actually at this point in the film, New York Continental is destroyed. It's literally been destroyed. It's blown up. It's gone. Okay, and Winston has no power because he has no hotel, right? Like, so what is his purpose? Like, he's a hotel lead, and now he has nothing, right? And so it's it's challenging to just to see, and it's challenging just to see where he's landing, right? So John needs a place of safe harbor. So he thinks to himself, and he realizes anybody who's going to take me in, there's not a lot of people who are going to take me in. Not a lot of people I can trust, right? And so he remembers a friend who can keep him safe and he can trust, and his name is Koji, and he is the owner of the Osaka Continental, right? He runs the Osaka Continental, right? And he runs it under with the consecration. I think Winston was the owner of the New York Continental. He runs it with the consecration of the table, right? Koji owns the Osaka Continental, and he runs it with the consecration of the table, right? So John Wick goes to Koji, and he doesn't check into the hotel. He can't publicly check in, but he arrives at the hotel, right? And so and Koji's daughter says, hey, there's talk in the air that John Wick could show up here at the Osaka Continental. We can't help him, right? Father, if you accept John Wick under this roof, the table will destroy us. They will remove our consecration, right? It could mean your death, right? And Koji says something really interesting to his daughter. He says, friendship means very little when it is convenient. And so what Koji is saying is, yeah, I know we may lose the entire Osaka Continental. I may lose my life, but and this is it. But he says to his daughter, but John Wick is my friend, right? And he's teaching her. He's like, this is what my friendship means, right? And he's saying to her, what does your friendship mean? What does it mean, right? It's a deep question. It's a deep, deep question, right? And so basically at this point, John arrives, right? The moment he arrives at the Osaka, John arrives and Koji greets him. Koji gives him hospitality under his roof, gives him even 1 minute of protection, which breaks the commandment that he has been given by the table. The table is like, this guy needs to die, right? That's not correct. De Gramont, a member within the table, wants him dead, right? So this puts Koji into a bad position, right? And so at this point, De Gramont's men arrive at the Osaka Continental, right? And so Koji is protecting John Wick, and both Koji and John Wick fight De Gramont, one opposing member of the table who opposes John Wick and wants John Wick dead. It's not clear yet what the table really wants from John. But De Gramont, who is an established, powerful member of the table, wants him dead, right? And so Koji goes against De Gramont and now has given himself friction with the table itself, okay? All right. So all of this is happening, right? And at this point, Kane is brought into the picture. Now, who is Kane? Kane is a blind contract killer who has been contracted by Kane. Kane is a contract killer, a blind contract killer, who has been contracted by De Gramont to kill John Wick. Okay? At this point, right, Kane is pursuing John Wick, but Koji puts himself in front of Kane and saying, no, you ain't getting to John Wick. You're going to have to go through me, right? And Kane's like, hey, I'm here to kill John Wick. Koji, I respect you. I don't want to kill you, right? And he's like, and so he said, and so Kane says to Koji, hey, listen, you could lose the Osaka Continental, and you could lose your life, okay? You need to let this go, because you don't owe John Wick anything, right? He doesn't have a marker on you. He doesn't have a marker on you. Now, everybody who works under the table, these super high-end contract killers like John Wick, like Kane, right? Probably like Koji was at one point, right? These guys all live under a code, right? And the code is you pay in gold coins, right? Which have literally the value of gold, but also have the value that the table, it has a multiplier on it, because these are special gold coins minted specifically by the table, right? So they have a special value even above that. You can get an American Gold Eagle for about $1,800, right? And dope people use those for currency today. We're like, but these are even more special than American Gold Eagles, right? These are, this is pure gold, and this is stamped by the table, right? Like, so it has a multiplier on it. It might be 10 times the value of an American Gold Eagle, right? And this gets really interesting, right? Because basically it's saying traditional values are for schmucks, right? Like, people value different things at different levels. The schmucks of the world look up what it costs on eBay, right? But the Macs of the world, they don't value things the way other people value them, right? They might die for a coin, right? Like, it's different values, right? And so Koji is like, hey, listen, you need to understand. And so Kane's like, don't lose your hotel, don't lose your life over a friend, right? And Koji says the best line of the movie. It's such a powerful line, right? And what he says is, so Koji says to Kane, how far you have fallen that you think your debts that you think our debts are counted in markers. Interesting, right? He's like, this ain't about a gold coin. This isn't about a marker, right? And these, by the way, these gold coins are put out. And if you don't have a gold coin, you could set a marker, right? A marker is essentially a promise to pay gold coins when you have them in your physical space, right? And so a marker is just as good as a gold coin to anyone who deals with the table's rules, right? So Koji says to Cain, he says, how far you've fallen, right? To think that your debts are counted in markers. And what he's saying to him is like, I'm gonna die for John Wick, right? This hotel will burn for John Wick because I owe a debt to John Wick that has nothing to do with money, has nothing to do with coins, has nothing to do with markers. It has to do with honor. It has to do with identity, with who I am and with who John Wick is, right? And there is a bond between us. And the debt we have is something you don't understand, right? You are a contract killer. You could be controlled by a marker, right? And you could be contracted to go kill someone, right? And you risk your life for a marker. But my debts are not counted as a marker. My debts are what I choose. And when I have committed to a debt, it will be paid, right? Or I will be 6 feet under before it goes unpaid. And I'm willing to lose my life so that whoever I decide to make whole on the debts I have committed to are made whole, right? He's saying, I will protect John Wick. My debts are not counted with a marker. I decide where I extend debt, right? And once I have committed to a debt, it will be paid, right? Or I will be in the dirt, one or the other, right? And I will literally go to the grave before I leave a debt unpaid. And I have a debt to John Wick, which I have chosen, right? What's this got to do with Dungeons & Dragons? You owe a debt to Dungeons & Dragons. If you're here, right? If you have 100 plus sessions in, if you're listening to Scott Garibay, you in the deep end of the pool, baby, right? You owe a debt to Dungeons & Dragons. Why, right? I'll tell you why, okay? In 1974, Gary Gygax created the most powerful secular bridge to identity, narrative, and language that has ever been created by any human being. You no longer function as a normal human being. You have a new relationship to identity. You have a new relationship, right, to language, and you have a new relationship to narrative. You have been exposed to something that will give you 100 lives, 100 voices, 100 hearts. Each extra life you are given will come with memories of its own, sensations of its own, emotions of its own, right? These will echo in you forever, right? Until you're put into a pine box, right? And it transforms you. It doesn't allow you to sit as a regular human and just have meaningless conversations and function like you did before, right? There are 100 identities in you. You are manifold sentient, right? You no longer live locked in one being. You owe a debt. But here's the question. Are you Koji and you can recognize the debt you owe to Dungeons & Dragons? And we're not talking, and I pay $50. I actually pay $60 for a fizzy dig. I pay for the physical book and the digital counterpart. Every single D&D canon hardback. Does that pay my debt to Dungeons & Dragons? No. Right? I own 3 libraries because I'm a dungeon master. I have studied architecture at a level I would never have expected. That's just one discipline, right? I have an entire series of videos on disciplines that Dungeon Masters, botany and military history and, physiology and like all these disciplines that anybody else can walk away with and is like, I can stop learning anytime I want. You're a Dungeon Master. You can never stop learning. It is your job to understand every type of person. It's your job to be able to empathize with any non-player character who you are going to put forward, right? You can never stop learning. Gary sets it in your mind. In 1974, he demanded that you never stop learning. Whoever asked you of that, right? Whoever demanded of you to never stop learning, right? He calls you to a higher state, right? And I was 12 years old when I set foot on the road of Dungeons and Dragons, and I could see where it's taking me, right? It has been an integral part of my life. It is an integral part of my identity. I owe a debt, and that debt is never paid with $60 paid for a D&D canon hardback. The debt is service, to serve as a dungeon master, to inspire others, and to make sure that Dungeons and Dragons never leaves the face of this earth as group after group after group come and shout, D&D be gone. One group came in 1983, one group came in 2023. I owe a debt. I owe a debt of service to Dungeons and Dragons. Are you Koji or are you Kane? Right? Is your debt so deep you're willing to sacrifice? What is it? It's service and sacrifice, right? That's what Koji was saying. My debt is paid in service and sacrifice, right? What is the service you will give to Dungeons and Dragons? What is the sacrifice you will give to Dungeons and Dragons, right? And this has nothing to do with Hasbro. It doesn't have anything to do with Wizards of the Coast. It doesn't have to do with TSR, because there'll be another company, right? The debt is to Gary's legacy. The debt is to Dungeons and Dragons. We choose. And it has nothing to do with $50 paid for a canon, for a canon hardback, right? Dungeons and Dragons transformed me. It made me more than I was. And I will never forget that debt. I am Koji. I will stand, right? And I will serve and I will sacrifice. Or are you Kane, right? And all that matters to you is a marker. Oh, here's my D&D canon hardback. It's going to be fun. I'm going to chop a goblin in half. I never changed. I never grew. I was never challenged. Are you going to deny what happened in you when you connected to Dungeons and Dragons? Are you Koji or are you Kane? Every single word of that is my humble opinion. What's important is when I get to hear your humble opinion. When you get in the comments and send your traffic. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.